All right, guys, thank you guys again for coming out. Just to reiterate what Todd said, but a little bit about me before we get started is my name's Luke. I'm from the great state of Alabama. Roll Tide fan. Guys, I spent my last 2 years in New York City working as a personal trainer, coach up there for way too high-end clients, and it was a lot of fun. Glad to be here in Texas. I moved here in May, so I'm still very new. I live out in the Willowbrook area. For those of you that don't know, I drive out here at those 4:30s. So if you're missing workouts, you need to get here.
That's how much his passion for nutrition was.
There you go.
That's right.
But look, like Todd just said, I do have a passion for nutrition. I got my degree in biology and exercise physiology from the University of Alabama in Huntsville, the sister campus to the big campus. And I also got the opportunity to play 3 years of college baseball while I was there. While there, that degree was actually pre-med. I did not go to med school. I am not upset about it because, again, my passion was honestly nutrition. It was a small Division II school. We didn't even have an exercise science program. That's why I had biology. But again, long story short, I want to continue my education, get my master's, PhD as far as nutritional science is concerned. But that's where my passion lies, and that's why I love that I'm here. But getting started with today, I have this one. But today we're going to be talking about energy balance and the body self-defense system. Guys, when we talk about energy balance, I'm talking about calories. Calories in and calories out. So things that we need to know, a few things actually, is calories are energy. A big misconception that we have is that we think of calories as an actual substance. You cannot look at it under a microscope. It is an energy source. Think of it like air. Can you see air? No. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but you can't physically see it. So something else is that we need energy to survive. So when we're out here trying to not eat, starve ourselves, you're literally doing your body more harm than good. And then, guys, where energy comes from? The food we eat. The food we eat, as well as the energy we store. We do store things as fat in our fat tissue. Guys, fat is not bad. We need fat to survive. I recently, or at least last year, did a bodybuilding competition. As anybody might know, is that bodybuilders get dangerously low body fat. 2%, 3%, some have even been down to 1%. If you ask any of them at that time, they feel like crap because it's not sustainable. It's not something that you can actually survive off of. So we do need fat to survive. We need stored fat to survive. And then one last thing that I don't have up there is, guys, none of our bodies defy the laws of physics. A lot of people do think that they are quote-unquote anomalies, and there's always an explanation to it internally of what's going on in our bodies. But specifically what we're talking about today is energy balance, calories in, calories out. So what goes into these, and we'll go in more depth into it, but the calories inside is just simply the calories that we consume, what we eat, what we drink, things like that. It is more complicated that we're going to get into that, and then we'll actually handle the calories outside a little later afterwards. So, calories in. Why is it more complicated? Well, one, guys, when we're tracking, people always talk about tracking calories, tracking their food, what they're eating. Nutrition labels are 20 to 25% inaccurate, something that people don't know. But why is this? It's because that things are taken and measured in mass quantities. An average is taken of those. So one person can buy a chicken breast from Walmart, another person buys a different one. It's different sizes, it's processed differently. It's not 100% natural, but everything is a little different. It can be up to 20 to 25% inaccurate. And also the nutrients and the energy that the food has. And guys, just so you know, you'll see energy up there. It's also going to be intertwined with calories. They're interchangeable throughout this whole thing. I'm going to say it both ways. So just, if I'm going too fast, just let me know. But energy and calories are the same thing. So the amount of energy a food contains is not necessarily what we absorb. Guys, we're only getting what we absorb in. As people know, we break it down, we digest it, we process it. And something even a little bit deeper is that the way our individual body, our genetics, digest food, process food, store it, is different person to person. So when someone comes to me and says, do I have to eat 1,200 calories to lose weight? It goes so much deeper than that. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. So that's why it goes a lot deeper than just a number. So what does all this stuff mean? For example, we absorb less energy, we absorb less calories from minimally processed foods, and it's because they're harder to digest. That goes hand in hand with we absorb more energy from highly processed foods because they're easier to digest. Let's take a step back. Minimally processed foods, the whole chicken breast, the vegetables, sweet potatoes, things that you see organic in general, versus the highly processed things like cereal, chips, the chicken tenders that are frozen and things like that. Guys, what the biggest difference is that the process of them, the things that they're processing to make it, is, think of it as pre-digestion. Your system's not having to work as hard to digest it. And that goes directly into our calories out aspect that we're going to get into later. But think of that it's harder for your body to digest whole foods, which is a good thing in this case. We want our body to have to work to digest food. So going back into we are what we absorb, an example, we absorb more fat from peanut butter than peanuts. We only absorb about 30% of the fat from peanuts, whereas we absorb most of the fat, I didn't put it up there, but it's about 98% from peanut butter. So the process of it is making it easier for your digestive system to get it through and your body to actually absorb it. So, and then as well, and I'm just wanting to prelude this, is I'm not saying to go eat raw food because there's a reason we cook food. But we often absorb more energy from food that we cook, chop, blend, or anything that has already started the progress of breaking it down. And that's vegetables or meat. If we're cooking it, we've started breaking down the cells. If we blend it, we start breaking it down. So anything that we do that takes it out of its natural state begins that process. Now that's not bad. I want to reiterate that. Don't start eating raw chicken. Or if you do, let me know how that works. Probably not well. But again, don't do it. So going to continue. Another aspect of it, going back to that genetic side, is that we absorb more or less depending on the gut bacteria we have. Guys, there's billions of strands of gut bacteria. That's why if you ever went to buy a probiotic, they come in like 1 million, 10 million, 100 million strands. It's because there's countless numbers of gut bacteria in your actual body, and not everybody's the same. That's why we have lactose intolerant. That's why we have gluten allergies. That's why we have food allergies, because people's bacteria, their stomachs are different, and thus they're going to digest food, store food differently. So with that being said, eating whole, minimally processed foods, the number of calories you absorb is significantly less than expected. And then the opposite for highly processed foods. And again, we're going to get into that a little later, but to prelude it is that, guys, it takes energy to break it down. We're burning calories digesting food. So the final part of energy in is the actual, and just so you know, the shortened version of calories, the abbreviation is technically kcal, so that's what I use. But the actual number of calories you eat, actual being what are we actually eating? Remember, nutrition labels are 20 to 25% inaccurate, minus what we do not absorb. So that's pretty much calories in, but the calories out is where we get a lot more specific, a lot more in depth. So our calories out, TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure. It's broken down into your BMR, which we're going to get into, NEAT, EA, RPA, or TEF, TEE. Let's break those down. BMR, basal metabolic rate. Guys, this is simply the number of calories it takes to keep the lights on. Again, we need energy to survive. So when we're sleeping, we don't die. We continue to breathe. Our heart continues to beat. our organs continue to do what our organs do: digest food, help aid in recovery, all the things that we need to survive. And your basal metabolic rate makes up for that. You might have also heard resting metabolic rate. It's the same thing. The biggest thing is the quote unquote keep enough energy for the lights to stay on. Sorry, it's up there. I tried to read it, look away. But I'll say what it means is it's your involuntary actions, things you don't think about, things that you can literally do while you sleep, and that accounts for about 60% of your total daily energy expenditure. So what comes next? Neat. It's pretty neat. So non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Guys, any movements that we do involuntarily or just on our day-to-day life, walking to your car, fidgeting, me taking little steps back and forth, all of it burns a little bit of energy, burns a little bit of calories. EA or PA, exercise activity or physical activity. So when you come and purposefully work out, you come to inner element, you go weight train, go on a grind. Guys, it's anything that specifically you do to elevate your heart rate that you're doing for the betterment of your health. And last one, and this one's a little bit more complicated though, is the thermic effect of food or the thermic effect of eating. We got into it a little bit earlier, was it takes calories to digest food. So this is, like I said, the most complicated, and it also takes up about 10% of our daily caloric output. So we're going to go into why this is more complicated, but just keep in mind, it takes energy to burn energy. So continuing, it's more difficult because there's these things that we've all heard probably are macronutrients, being protein, carbs, and fat. Those all have different components and have a different effect on food, on eating, on digestion. So what am I saying by that? I also throw in fiber because it's a micronutrient. It doesn't actually technically look, when you look at nutrition labels, you look at protein, carbs, and fat. The little one on there that says fiber, it's very important. Any of you that have been in a nutrition meeting with me know this. But why is this important? Well, protein and fiber cause a 30% effect on TEE. What does that mean? There's an example below. Well, let's go. And versus carbohydrates, somewhere between 5 and 8%. Fat, somewhere between 2 and 3%. Now let's compare. If you guys that are either my clients or sat down with me know that, and I'm very honest about, I'm protein and fiber biased. I think it's very important. And one of those reasons is because of this. So think of it as an equation. If you eat 1,000 calories of protein or fiber, don't try to eat 1,000 calories of fiber. That's a lot of salad. Don't try to do it. But if you eat 1,000 calories of protein versus 1,000 calories of a carb. So I use the average of somewhere between 5 and 8% is about 6.5. So if you ate 1,000 calories of protein, you would burn about 300 of that during digestion. If you ate 1,000 calories of carbs, you would burn about 65 calories of that. So think about that when we're actually dieting or when we're eating. I'm not saying carbs are bad. I'm not saying fat is bad. I'm just saying that protein has a high effect on our system, and it's also why diets that have higher protein content are shown to lose more weight. It's because you're literally burning more calories. It's thermogenic in nature as compared to carbs versus fat. Again, I'm not saying either is bad, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but neither is bad, but I am personally protein biased. So what's our takeaway from this? So what's our takeaway from this is that it's a lot more difficult than just calories in, calories out. There's a lot that go into it, but something that I want you guys to know is that just because you want to lose weight, gain weight, it's all about energy balance. Where are you on that scale? Calories in versus calories out. But it goes a lot more than just eating less. That's where this slide comes in, is that if we want to lose weight, we have to be in a calorie or energy deficit. Guys, there's a lot of debate right now on the effectiveness of this or the validity of this. It's not up for debate. By definition, if you want to lose weight and you're not, by definition, you are not in a calorie deficit. It doesn't matter how many or how few of calories you are eating. If you are not losing weight, by definition, you are not in a calorie deficit. That's where we're heading into next. But also, guys, a way that we can get into a calorie deficit: move more, exercise more. All those things that we talked about, the BMR, the NEAT, EAPA, TEFTE, those are all variables. They can be changed. A simple way is you can technically, don't take us into extremes, technically you can eat the same amount once you begin working out. You increase that energy output. You didn't change the calories in. You increase the energy output, all of a sudden you can lose weight. Does that make sense? Following so far? Cool. And that leads straight into, why are our diets failing? Well, if you've been in a meeting with me before, I say this often. We do not, and I repeat, do not have a weight loss problem in this country. Actually, 6 out of 7 people that need to lose a significant amount of weight, they lose the weight. People lose weight all the time. It's not an issue. The issue is the sustainability aspect of it. It's the fact that in 1 year, 70% of those people have gained the weight back. In 2 years, 85%. In 3 years, 95% of people have gained all of the weight back. And somewhere between 1/3 and 2/3, so go ahead and say half, have gained more. So we don't have a weight loss problem. We have an issue with the diets we're choosing. We have a sustainability issue. It's the fact that what you're doing to lose the weight is not something that you can realistically do long term. That's why we have a 95% rate of failure for diets. So what do we need to do? Or why is this happening? Again, lack of sustainability. The yo-yo dieting. So we're dieting, we lost the weight. We decided that that's it, I'm good, let's go eat everything. Put it back on, back down, back up. And there's an interesting study on this that we'll get to at the end. And then the biggest thing is that if you remember the karate frog at the beginning, dieting awakens the body self-defense system. And that's kind of where things get a little touchy, or not touchy, but a little bit more in depth. So, body self-defense system. And yes, Todd, I changed the prong. You gave me a lot of crap about it. But
you can read it, yay.
It was difficult to read earlier. But, guys, something that we need to think about dieting-wise, the calories out-wise, when we are expending more than we're taking in, is that we're going into a mini starvation mode. Your body reacts to this as it would famine. The biggest detriment to society for the last 20,000 years was famine, a lack of food. Therefore, your body reacts to that. And our body, if you haven't noticed, is really, really good at adapting. It's very good at it. But what happens is that it's under what I've labeled a three-pronged attack. It defends against it through metabolic adaptation. It's going to try to restore energy balance, and it's going to try to prevent it from ever happening again. So what does it do to reduce this energy gap? Well, it causes your fat cells to shrink, and it signals to the brain that there's an energy gap. So what is your body going to do? If you've ever dieted, which I'm sure some of us, or at least most of us have, you'll notice that when you're in that caloric deficit, when you're losing weight, you kind of feel slower. Things don't happen as quick. If you actually watch it, you'll see yourself moving slower. You'll be wanting to move less because you don't have the energy that you're currently needing. You are literally in a deficit, and your body does not like that. Your body does not want to be unbalanced. So it's going to do everything it can to bring it back to balance. So it lowers your TDEE. Remember that that's your total daily energy expenditure. It's literally making your metabolism adapt. And just so you guys know, it's a term that's thrown around a lot. Metabolic damage. It's not a thing. It's not real. It's metabolic adaptation. You cannot damage your metabolism. You can slow it down by not eating enough or even eating too much, but you cannot actually damage it. So what else? Your body wants to increase its energy intake. If you are in a deficit, your body does not like that. That's why you will always plateau on your diet. No matter how many calories you're eating, how low it goes, your body will adapt, and that's why you always plateau. And what else is it wants to make weight loss more difficult. So guys, our body always wants to be on that dotted line. It wants to be balanced. Naturally, if you think about it for 5 seconds, your body wants to be in a good homeostatic place. It wants to be well balanced. It wants enough energy to survive, and it's sensing an energy gap, so it wants to fix that. And that's why we feel hungry, because we need energy. Next, when you diet, your body becomes more efficient. So it's a little difficult to think about, but follow me with this. Think about it as your body as a car. An efficient car can go a long time without needing fuel. Its miles per gallon is fantastic. An inefficient car burns through that really, really fast. Your miles per gallon is much slower. You want your body to be inefficient when it comes to this. An efficient body holds on to its nutrients, holds on to its calories, and that's where the fat tissues come from, because it wants to have energy long term. An inefficient body knows it's getting enough nutrients to survive, knows that it can burn through things, so it's going to. That's why you hear fat speed your metabolism up. When your metabolism is fast, your body is inefficient. So think about it like, you need to think about it like that. And the more your body captures, the more your body is efficient, it reduces that energy gap. It's bringing those calories, whatever you're eating, to lose the weight or whatever you're doing, to actually be its balance, its maintenance. Say, we with me so far? Making sense? Go back a second. Why not? So in the last part of that was that your body's going to make it harder. So how does your body make it harder? Well, they actually did a really cool study in rats. And I know it's not humans, but we do testing on rats unless you guys want to volunteer for this stuff. But it was really interesting. So that first circle represents, did we fix this? Yeah. Oh well. Oh no, wait, it's still fixed. Never mind, sorry guys. So the first circle represents the group of rats that they tested with. These rats are consistent the entire time, and they dieted down for the first time. You're going to lose the weight. They put you on X number of calories, and you lost the weight at 1x. That's the original speed. So now you have your quote unquote dieted down body. Then they let you eat the rats eat whatever they want, however they want, and it creates degree gain, just like we do after we celebrate the weight loss that we had and we hit our goals and we're like, yay. Well, they actually regained that weight twice as fast as they lost it. So think about it simply, it took 4 weeks to get to that dieted down state. It took 2 weeks to gain it back. And then they decided to diet it down again. Now this study also equated calories. So they put them back on the same number of calories as they were on before to lose the weight. And it took twice as long as the original. So if they lost it in 4 weeks, it took them 8 weeks to diet back down. So what's happening? Your body's adapting. Your body remembered that it lost X amount of weight at this time. It was in this famine at this weight, and it made it harder. So then they reached their goal weight. They regained it back. They regained it back at 3 times the original weight, or the original pace. So it took them 2 weeks to gain it back the first time. It took them X amount of days, 3 times as fast. So can we relate that to our own person? Can we relate that to somebody that we know maybe that constantly yo-yo dieting, fluctuating of the weight back and forth, that it's much harder doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. So that's the mainstay of that study, and it's also where my kind of passion lies, is how our bodies metabolically adapt, how our digestive system, how our metabolism, how all these things factor in to our actual nutrition. So something just to piggyback off of this and go back to a previous aspect was when calories are equated, and this is where a lot of misconception happens, and it's a lot of, Luke, what diet is best? And quite honestly, if you look at the research, you look at what we just went over, it's the one you can stick to. Whether that's, and we've talked a lot about it, whether that's intermittent fasting, Weight Watchers, Atkins, keto, high carb, low carb, eating 10 meals a day, eating 1 meal a day, whatever it is, it's the one that you can stick to, it's the one that you can stick to long term. So something that we need to think about is remembering it is all about, break it down, you can't get away from the law of thermodynamics, that it is calories in, calories out. Whether you're eating high carb, low carb, keto, whatever. Now, so what does that mean? Let's break it down. When protein is equated, and remember, and I use protein as an example because, again, diets have been shown to be more effective on higher protein. Again, you can look back at how are the thermic effect of food. You can also look at that it's very satiating. Any of you guys that have had a whole bunch of meat, there's a thing called meat sweats. It's literally your body trying to digest it. But when you equate that, and then the overall calories being equated, say that's 2,000, whatever, it literally does not matter how you fill in the gap. Low carb versus high carb, low fat versus high fat, does not matter, calories equated. So when people ask, or when people are asking me, and it's something that a topic conversation that always happens is, I need to drop my carbs. I need to drop my carbs. I need to drop my carbs. Carbs aren't bad. Carbs aren't bad. And guys, another thing, sugar's not bad. Now, sugar can be bad in the fact that it's really easy to overeat because it's not very filling. But they actually did a study where they gave the control group versus the experimental group 100 grams of sugar in a day. Calories equated, guys. Everything's equated. 100 grams of sugar, 2 grams of sugar throughout their entire day. I believe it was a 12-week study. If you guys ever want these studies, I'll send them to you. But no difference on fat loss, weight loss. No difference. The biggest thing is that is the sugar group more hungry? Maybe, because you also have to think about volume. Guys, 50 grams of sugar is a lot less than 50 grams of carb coming from like a sweet potato. Now, biologically, it's the same. The bioavailability of it, the amount that your body can actually absorb, is the same. But the actual literal volume, it's like drinking a Coke. How many of us get actually full from drinking a Coke? Not many. Carbonation, yeah. But it's very similar. It's very empty calories that we might have heard. But equated, it's the same. It doesn't make a difference. That's the biggest aspect of it. So here's your references if you need them. But I should have put this at the front. But this is me. Should have had this at the front. Thought about it about 15 minutes ago. But guys, if you have any questions, you know where to catch me. I work here all the time. You can shoot me an email. There's a sign-up sheet if you guys want a free consultation. Everybody gets one. I hope this has been really helpful. And after, and just a little bit about our program, guys. Everything is individualized. As you can see when we were talking, every genetic is different. Every body is different. So what works for me is not going to work for you. What works for one isn't going to work for another. Accountability, guys. How much better are you when you have to report to somebody? It just gives a little bit of accountability, as well as it's evidence-based, guys. I'm very science-oriented, if you can't tell, and I love talking about it. So be careful if you ask me too many questions. But at the same time, guys, if you have a question that I don't know the answer to, I can give you an educated guess, but I'll let you know if I actually don't know. I give you my theory, but if I don't know, I don't know, and I'll tell you, and I'll find the answer, if there is one, yet. But after this, let's go eat.
Does anybody have any questions right now? I know there's a lot in there. We can go backwards in slides if you got questions.
I have a coworker who likes to do juice cleanses where all she does is drink like 4 juices a day. What are your thoughts on that? Calories in and calories out. And is there any benefits to not digesting anything per week?
No. Say short and simple, no, guys. Juice cleanses, all the cleanses, detox. You have to keep it in perception. How do diets work? Why do all of the ketos, the Atkins, the Weight Watchers, why do they work? Because in some way, form, or fashion, it's creating a calorie deficit. If you're doing keto or low carb, we'll just go those. They're not the same, but we're going to treat them as the same for this. You're literally eliminating a food group. It's going to naturally create a calorie deficit. You are no longer eating carbs. Same if you guys were something that I didn't say, and I'm very biased towards protein. Don't eat just protein. You will feel terrible doing it. But if you did I think it's ridiculous, but it's called a carnivore diet. They only eat protein, and you're literally eliminating carbs and fat. It creates a calorie deficit one way or another. So same with juice cleanses, liquid diets. More than likely, just say that the average person, I don't know this for a fact, but the government tells us the 2,000 calories is a daily for somebody, so we'll just use that as an average. More than likely, your juice cleanse is giving you less than your 2,000 calories if you're average, so you will probably lose weight. I think that there are definitely downfalls to it, but also with any diet, there's probably great benefit to it for whatever reason, but as a way to lose weight, yeah, you're not eating anything. I would not say it goes back to can you see yourself doing this a week down the line, a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, can you see yourself doing it? If the answer is no, you gotta find something else. It's not sustainable, it's not gonna work. That's what the research is showing us, is that whatever you do to lose the weight, you have to be able to continue to do to keep it off. Does that make sense? Any other questions? Please feel free to ask.
Does everybody understand, since you're not asking questions, this is one of the main aspects of calorie in, calorie out, right?
Yes.
So wouldn't you, I just want to make sure everybody gets the energy gap and almost the summary of what is the real takeaway to the calorie in, calorie out. Like, what are they doing?
Gotcha. So, again, calorie in, calorie out. Guys, it works the same way if you're in a calorie surplus. Your body does not like being there. Your body wants to be at balance, just like you guys want to balance. How many times do you get bored at work and you try to balance a pen or a pencil? You're always looking for balance. Your body's always looking to function optimally. You do not function optimally being perfect, biologically especially, if there is an energy gap. So your body will do whatever it takes to get there. And what Todd's talking about is it will do whatever it takes. As in, if if your calories in is lower than your calories out, you're going to be hungry. You are going to be tired because your metabolic rate is slowing. You are not going to want to move. It is going to do anything in its power to get us back to that maintenance level. Again, the dotted line being maintenance, and it's trying to flip that back to center. Does that kind of answer?
So how do you get through a plateau? Yeah.
So that's something that no one ever talks about is the diet after the diet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a lot of times where we fail, is that because a lot of times, and it's not what you want to hear, but a lot of times your peak or valley, however you want to think about as far as your goal weight, may not be exactly where you are going to stay. There may be an inevitable small, call it 5 pounds, increase in weight. And that's because your body, think about how hard you had to work to get to that goal. You will continue to have to work that hard to stay there. So there's a natural, it's not a phenomenon, but there's no scientific backing right now. It's in the works of what's called reverse dieting, the slow increase of calories back in, because the honest to goodness answer is we want dieting to be as easy as possible. We want to eat as much as we can and lose weight. And the fact of that is, remember when we diet, your maintenance is starting to lower. That's why when we diet on 1,200 calories, let's say we're starting at 2,000, you go straight to 1,200, you're gonna lose that weight really quickly, but you're going to stop. You have two options here. You can either somehow work harder, because I already know that you're kicking your tail in the gym, doing everything you can, so you're going to have to create another calorie deficit. So you're either going to have to eat less, or somehow you're going to have to add more exercise. And that's not necessarily sustainable, and it's definitely not be healthy. That's why we go back to my example of being of the bodybuilding. That's not healthy. It's not a healthy sport. People do it, they enjoy it, but it's not a healthy sport. But what happens afterwards, ideally, is you start to reverse diet back. You start adding calories. You inevitably will probably gain at least a pound. Just because, think about you got down to 1,200 calories to lose the weight, because you're probably hungry on that. And are you going to drop below 1,000 to lose more? I would not suggest that. I've talked to a few of my clients about already reversing it, because your body's already adapted to it. But that doesn't mean your body can't adapt back. So the slow incremental increase of calories, whether it be protein, carbs, fat, is very beneficial, and something that you're going to have to do to quote unquote fix your metabolism or make it adapt coming back up. And it can be done, and you can definitely keep weight off that way, especially losing weight. For example, I did my bodybuilding competition. I actually tracked macros. I tracked protein, carbs, fat. That of course added up to my calories. So I believe at my peak, I was eating, I think it was right at 2,000 maybe 1,900 when I stepped on stage. After the show, and if you guys don't know, this is my girlfriend and she can attest to this. After my competition, I did not gain a pound until I got back up to 4,000 calories. So the addition of that, what is sustainable of that, and still maintaining your weight is going to be what we need to fix, what we need to work on. And a lot of us are starting in a spot of dieting. A lot of people come to me at the time where they have plateaued and they want to keep going, but that's not what your body's screaming at you to do. It's screaming to stop and let it fix itself, let it catch up, let us start functioning more optimally, and then we can come back and do it. And that's why we can diet and not struggle. There's going to be sacrifice. There's always going to be sacrifice. There's always going to be a give or take. But we can diet and not struggle and not feel like crap. And that's what the whole premise of my program is that it's finding something that you can realistically do long term and still live your life. You don't have to be the hermit that carries food around in your purse or in your bag. You can still go out, you can still make good decisions and still reach our goals. I personally tell people that I strive for, we probably all heard it, 80-20. Because I just want us making good decisions most of the time. And one good decision usually leads to another. One bad decision usually leads to another. But the addition, the accumulation, looking at things from a macro or a large picture perspective gets us to where we want to go long term. Weight loss or weight gain. Some people want to gain weight. It's not going to happen overnight, and if it does, there's going to be downfalls to it. Realistically, sustainable progress doesn't happen overnight. It's a long-term journey, especially keeping it off or keeping it on, whichever way.
Question. Do you know of any long-term negative effects of intermittent fasting?
Long-term, no.
I mean, is it something you do every day, or is it? Oh, okay.
You absolutely can.
And would that break the concept?
It goes back to what is causing the deficit. So intermittent fasting, for instance, the traditional way to intermittent fast is a 16-hour fast followed by an 8-hour feeding window. So, and that can vary person to person, obviously, but you think again of, guys, you're literally not eating for 16 hours, you're probably creating a calorie deficit. The purpose of it is, again, the sustainability side of it. Can we stick to it? And also you're eating in much less time. The end goal is being able to get all the nutrients that we need in that time. So the answer long short of that is it might, but it's again, can you see yourself doing this long term and keeping it sustainable? I'm not saying that you have to do it for forever, but at least long term, so that our body adjusts to it. We can always go out of something, but you can't just flip 180. There's a gradual to everything. And people that I normally will do like intermittent fasting for, it's generally schedule dependent. Again, it's what works for you. I've worked with a number of doctors, surgeons, things like that are literally on their feet, on the go all the time. They can't stop and eat. They work straight through lunch. They work 12 straight hours. They don't get that opportunity to stop. So it's telling them that, hey, you need to eat every 3 hours, 5 times a day realistic? No. And it's the fact that, and I don't have it up here because it wasn't specific, but meal frequency has no correlation to fat loss, weight loss. When calories equated, again, let's go back to that 2,000 calorie aspect. If you did that 400 calorie meals 5 times a day, or 2 1,000 calorie meals twice a day, it's the same overall input. Everything averages out to be the same. So again, it comes back to, is that sustainable for you? Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So things like intermittent and things like that wouldn't, like they say, affect your metabolism when you were saying no.
I'll say it will have an effect in terms of it's going to adapt. It's not going to injure or damage or anything, but your body's going to adapt to whatever you're doing. If you began doing intermittent fasting, guys, probably that first day where you're trying to fast for 16 hours, you're probably going to get hungry. But your body will adapt to that, just like it adapts to our workouts here in our element. If you've been going here a while, you've probably noticed that, well, maybe, we keep the workouts pretty good, but you can probably notice that your heart rate doesn't spike as high on the treadmills after you've been going for a while. Your body's made to adapt. Whether you believe in evolution or not, your body has adapted since the Stone Age. It's become more accustomed to what we need today to survive as opposed to when we were cavemen.
And I'll chime in a little bit on that. Intermittent fasting is something I highly recommend, especially more from the exercise side as opposed to the deeper science and nutrition side. But I don't recommend go Google intermittent fasting and then go. And not without the guidance of somebody that really knows the deeper side of what it is. And then just also kind of know, typically intermittent fasting takes a ton of discipline, because it's not just don't eat and then go eat whatever you want for 8 hours. It's like, okay, it goes back to what you're saying. Put the right things, what are the right things that you're putting in your body, going all the way to the deeper side of protein, carb, fat, or the right ratios of calorie in, calorie out. And then intermittent fasting, a lot of times coming from the exercise guy, with our types of workouts, worry me a lot too. So the last thing I want is you coming in here on 16 hours and not eating and be like, I'm ready to do a hyper like today and burn 800 calories and go and faint on us and everything else that could come along with that. So just, these seminars are to educate you in a lot of ways, but at the same time, as you've learned already, Luke knows a ton of the deeper science. And the reason I put this slide up is this is one of my love-hate favorite statements that he makes here is that bottom one. The way it is digested, processed, absorbed, stored, and used. And he's just talking about calories, but just food in general. But then the second half of this statement is the even more just true part, where doing a seminar like this to 20 plus people, it's like, well, okay, he can give you the knowledge, but it's not as specific, because the second half of it is the individual makeup of you changes person to person. So even in a family, that's why it's so hard a lot of times when families come or wife comes and then goes home like, oh, my husband won't. Well, your husband doesn't probably need the same diet as you. You probably don't have the same goals. You probably don't have the same things. So that's what makes it really tough in a family environment. So then, okay, how do we make it a family meal? And those kind of things. So there's just a whole lot more to dive in. That's why this is Nutrition Seminar number 1. And we'll have a whole lot more where I kind of help Luke hone in on this as kind of the beginning. And there's so many different areas that he can take this conversation and go. So these are great questions, and just my suggestion through all of it is it's all based on you. And you'll learn how your body, and then it changes all the time, like Luke said, but once your body adapts to one side, then you got to do it again. That's kind of why we all got into exercises, because it's fun. Like, yeah, we graduated with all of our degrees, but that was then and this is now. The research changes all the time. That's why Luke has a references slide, because there's literally studies that say this today and next month may say something different based on this study. There's so many different things, and it's just always changing, always ongoing. That's how your bodies are too. So,
guys, piggyback off of that, just an example. How many years ago were eggs the cause of cancer? And now it's the best thing ever type thing. And also going back to the genetic side of things, as they've done a study already on homozygous twins, literally the same genetic profile. They took their BMRs, which how you measure BMRs, RMR, whatever you want to talk about, resting metabolic rate, basal metabolic rate. You literally just lie there is how you test it. It's all you do. You don't get to sleep, unfortunately, so that's the hardest part. But literally staying awake is the hardest part. Different BMRs. Homozygous twins, same genetic profile, different calorie burn. It's individual to absolutely everyone. No one's the same.
Any other questions? Great. Thank y'all for coming. Great job, Luke.